Warning: the information given during this podcast is from professionals discussing situations from our experience and sharing knowledge.
We are not treating or diagnosing what you are personally experiencing, and if you are having difficulties, please seek professional help.
Hello and welcome. This is
It's Not You.
It's Them.
I'm Lauren.
And I'm Rich.
This series is about checking in and looking at ways to explore what is going on around you.
This week's theme is attachment style and the power of no. Now that's quite an interesting topic.
Yes, it is. Yes, I think the word no has many connotations, and many, even people thinking about saying no can cause people to have an anxious reaction. So I think This is a great one to talk about, especially within how people react to themselves and also how they react to others.
Do you think this would also feed into things like consent and stuff like that? That's
Absolutely.
No, that yeah.
Because no is a boundary that people have to allow themselves to have, that I can say no.
Yeah.
And people don't give themselves permission for it, and then that causes these attachment style issues. It causes these relationship issues where people are willing to take abuse or disrespect just for the sake of not upsetting somebody else. So yeah, no, consent and everything else is very much tightly wrapped into this.
Yeah. So how many attachment styles are there, and how does it affect us?
So there are 4 that have been sort of widely agreed on.
Okay.
And they're kind of in a little box. If you imagine a box in your head, in the top left box, you've got secure. So secure attachment with self and others. For example, you may say, Lauren, I don't like your fabulous Miss Piggy shirt today. Thank you for your opinion, but I'm still going to wear it, and there's going to be no issue about me thinking, should I wear this today or should I not, because so-and-so doesn't like it, right? That would be secure with myself. I trust my emotions. I'm listening to them. I can communicate if I'm upset, yes or no, well, thank you for your opinion, but it doesn't really matter. And I am cooperative and flexible in my behavior. That's secure, right? Top right box is anxious, preoccupied. So, for example, use the shirt example. If you came in and said, Lauren, I don't like your shirt today, next time I see you, I might have that in the back of my head. Well, Rich didn't like my shirt, so I better not wear that one today. I care more about your opinion than my own. So I have sensitive nervous system. I might be kind of hypervigilant. I struggle to communicate that hurt my feelings that you don't like it, but I'm going to overcompensate at my end just to make sure that you're okay, even though I love this shirt, right? Okay. Bottom left corner is dismissive avoidant.
Okay.
Now, if you came in and said, Lauren, I don't like your shirt, you can bet your ass I'm going to wear this shirt every time I see you now.
Right, okay. So it's almost like, it's like the ultimate fuck you then.
It is. And typically these guys, they're very lone wolf. It's very, well, that's nice for you, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's more self-reliant. Interestingly, anxious, preoccupied, and dismissive avoidant typically end up in relationships with each other. They're kind of two sides of the same coin. The anxious, preoccupied are very clingy. They can be very needy. Why don't you love me more? Why can't we sit and watch Netflix for 4 hours whilst I put my feet on you? Whereas dismissive avoidants are like, get off me. I don't need you on me all the time. Like I already said, I love you. No, I love you. Why do I have to say it all the time? So lots of this kind of back and forth. Although dismissive avoidance, the more you come for them, the more you kind of need them, the more they check out. They don't have that emotional substance within them.
And is that for, like, once you're in this attachment style that you can't get out of it? Or is it sort of like, once you're there, you're stuck?
You can have different attachments, different people. You absolutely, in all 4 of these boxes, you can move towards secure, which is the ultimate goal, right?
Yep.
Being okay with yourself and others. But there can still be residual behavioral patterns. So, like, if you're secure with your parents, you may be anxious, preoccupied with somebody else, and vice versa. Yeah, it's based on experience and emotional resilience. So, and then the last one is fearful avoidant. Now, these people haven't had secure attachment in any way, so they're a bit all over the place. They strongly fear rejection to the point of this is more so than the anxious one. This is putting themselves at risk for the happiness of others, like risk of injury or assault. High anxiety in relationships. It may even look like stalking or controlling behavior, in that they need to know where they are every time because they think something bad's going to happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't come out in this caring way. It comes out in this neurotic, damaging way.
It's like a million messages going, oh, I was only worried, you've got me worried. So then you start changing your patterns, because it's almost like, as it sort of, a lot of abusive situations, it's almost like it rides off the back of something legitimate. So like that caring thing, like, oh, I'm really worried in case you get attacked or whatever, then it becomes, well, you can't do that because I'm worried about you getting attacked. So you're doing it to make me worried, and it just becomes...
Yeah, it's kind of, it gets very ugly very quickly, because this person has no sense of self. So they are solely reliant on the people in their lives, and that's where that fierce codependence comes in, and can be suffocating in a relationship. So what does all of that mean, right?
Yeah.
You might hear this and think, well, I'm secure, like I'm fine.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe. And that's great. Like, yeah, that's great. But what happens is you start to you may have a type in a relationship. You may try to pick, well, I need this type of guy or girl or person. Right?
Yeah, okay. But what do you mean by that type? Like, physicality, you don't like personality. It's like you always seem to, you notice a thread. Your exes have all got something similar in common, kind of thing. You're talking about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And my argument for that is you're looking for something in someone else that you have to first build up within yourself.
Okay.
That, like, some people are looking for sense of security, some 6 foot tall person that's, protective and safe, when that should come from within. You should be safe with yourself first, because then you start making those allowances or compromises that you wouldn't necessarily make if you were in that secure box. Does that make sense?
That's right. Yeah, and it does make complete sense. But also that bit of security from somebody else, that's definitely been like force-fed through media, films, television, like romantic notions of you'll be better when somebody. Yeah. So there's all that undoing that makes people feel a bit more wonky. Yeah.
And in relationship patterns with dismissive avoidant and anxious preoccupied, so that opposite, we can see that a lot in abusive relationships, right? Okay. That kind of polarized, one end of the spectrum and the other, and the interactions with those guys, we call them the crazy eights, because you can flip in between anxious preoccupied and dismissive avoidant within the same relationship. Like the dismissive avoidance, they want connection, but they don't know how to have it, and they don't trust it, right? If someone's giving me love, they must want something.
Right. Okay.
So having those few close friends, they don't share personal information easily. You kind of have to drag it out of them. They not into the PDA. They don't like to be touched or held or hugged. Like a lot of this sense of I've got it by myself.
But is that this for the anxious?
That's
the top right. Top right, isn't it? Top right.
This is
avoidant. Anxious avoidant.
Avoidant is bottom left. Fearful, anxious preoccupied is top right.
Preoccupied, okay.
Yeah, anxious preoccupied is top right.
And that's what they're doing.
Yes, they end up in relationships with each other and they become quite codependent. Like the anxious people just want to be loved. Top right corner just want to be loved. And sometimes at the cost of their own happiness. They overshare personal information easily. They give everybody everything. They're always involved in someone else's business. They're the guys on Facebook having a bad day, sad face, and then get flooded with comments. Right? Okay. Because they don't have that internal sense of self that's like, I'm okay, it will be all right. He didn't answer my message for 30 minutes. That must mean he hates me. No.
So they're definitely like filling in the blanks because their anxiety is filling in the blanks for them.
Yes.
So what does that
Yeah.
mean? Oh, now I've created,
Yeah.
because we all know the brain doesn't like blank as an
Nope.
answer. It needs to fill it. It needs to fill it immediately. It's the worst blankety blank game in the world because it's populated with stuff it's found from wherever.
Yeah. And when it starts to get towards abusive, it's more like the top right, anxious, preoccupied, is willing to go further than their normal boundary would be, and potentially the worst ones would be, sexual boundaries. If someone's agreeing to something that they would not normally do because they want bottom left, dismissive avoidance to love them, be with them, support them, that's an overstep, right? And that's a dangerous overstep because you're pushing past your own limits to make somebody else happy. So that's when that relationship becomes abusive, because the emotional boundaries are being crossed. Dismissive avoidance, they're not really considerate of other people's feelings to the point of, well, why did I need to tell you where you were? You knew where I was.
Right.
Right,
So,
but
what about going back to the anxious one? At what point then? Because that sounds like you could easily oh, I just went along with it because that's what they would have wanted, and I wasn't really comfortable with it. I'm sort of looking at the things of well, if you're trying to check out with your partner, is it okay to do that? And then they're just saying yes. That could leave you in a weird position, because as far as you know, you've checked it out, but they've said yes, even though they don't mean it.
yeah, and I think culturally speaking, British people were kind of hardwired to not cause waves, to not make waves, to
Yeah. Agree with that.
deal with it when you get home, right? Americans, not so much. They're very talky people. No, they're very emotional people. It's very much let's hash it out or let's shout about it. There's a lot more built-in cultural, I don't have to tolerate this, or if you did hurt my feelings, I'm going to sue you. There's a lot more of that over here. But English, people pleasing itself, I think culturally for British people, we're left in a weird bind of not having that clarified.
So do you think people pleasing falls in this anxious box?
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
So people pleaser, this is like an extreme version of people pleasing, to the point of yes, yeah, okay.
Yeah, accepting of abuse and disrespect, all those things.
Yeah.
And
what do you think? Very good. I was just going to ask, what makes it different to an introvert?
Introverted still has boundaries, right? An introvert is still able to get their needs met without compromising those values, right? And that's the distinction. Is anxious, preoccupied attachment styles would be willing to give in just so that the other person is happy.
Okay.
Whatever that looks like.
Whatever that looks like, and just keep going and going and going. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and people might not realize that that's what it is. There's a difference between compromise between a partner and somebody knowing that you went past your boundary and is okay with it.
Because it's about them, not you, kind of situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's dismissive, avoidant, bottom left, which is, I'm going to get me and get mine. Yeah. It's your problem if you don't like it.
So, but you were saying before, the anxious and the dismissive one can swap around. So you could go to becoming this bit, and then do you think these are the extremes of each other? So you get pushed past a point, then it pings back across to the other end.
Yeah, because because dismissive avoidance really do want connection. It's just too scary for them. But every now and then, they get pushed to the point of, well, I do just want to sit and watch Netflix. So they do that and then allow the person to have their feet on them. And then they have this hypervigilance kick in of, this isn't safe. Someone's going to take this away from me, or someone's going to hurt my feelings. So then they shut down again. So that's what I mean with the flip-flopping. And the anxious preoccupied just want to be loved, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean about that. What we're talking about, the power of no, is dismissive avoidant. If you told them no, it's going to get a shrug, all right. They're going to go and get it somewhere else.
So then they don't accept that as an answer. They will keep on going until they find it.
If they felt like it was necessary for them.
And they could justify it to themselves. So I suppose they're always going to justify it, there's always yes, that why aren't I entitled to this, or you were withholding, and do you think that feeds into that cycle of almost eventually the other person will get blamed for it? It's because you did that. So do you think these dismissive people, they're very much like it's all about the blames everybody else? It's everybody else's fault. Okay. So you've got people pleasers and anxious, and the dismissives have got more around the lines of it's everybody else's fault but theirs. Yeah,
I'm fine. I don't know why you've got a problem.
Yeah.
And that's why it could become so toxic, is because the anxious people are doing everything and anything they can to get something out of the dismissives, right? Whether it's and I love you, whether it's a text back, whether it's, and there's this weird culture of, treat them mean, keep them keen?
Yes.
That is dismissive avoidance. Right? Do not do that to somebody else. That is unacceptable.
But do you think it's true? Do you think there's a negative truth in that? You know, that bit of if someone ignores you, or like, do you think that isn't human nature? That as soon as somebody starts to ignore you or whatever, it kind of does it pique our interest naturally?
Yeah, because we're curious species. You know, like we want to know how something works or why something was. Usually, if you can give somebody a why, they'll put it away.
Okay.
Right, whether they like the answer or not, it was still a reason.
Right, and they can make peace with that reason or not, as the case may be.
Exactly, right. But no, that curiosity, but you're also generating anxiety, and that doesn't sit well with me, unfortunately, because what do you get out of that? Like, so you're starting a relationship based on the fact that they needed you already. You're creating this need of, I need them to text me back. That power imbalance.
No. I was going to say that. And you can bet your bottom dollar that is the exact same scenario as why are they pestering me all the time? Why can't they, like, well, that's how you set it up. You set it up like that. Yeah, that's how you set it up.
Or, on the other side of that coin, getting flooded with messages at work or when you're somewhere else. Like, they know you're at work. And some people have the capacity to be on their phone and some people don't. For myself, I work in a prison. So I'm not on my phone for 8 hours.
So would this still be this dismissive doing this? Or would this be
this is the other side. This is anxious.
This is also anxious. This is people pleaser cannot get to the point where
they need to know what is going on. They have this need to be heard, validated, listened to, all day.
Yeah, all
day. So they want that interaction all day. And it's, hey, how are you? And it might just be a simple message, but the dismissives are kind of inner eye rolling of, I'm at work, like, what do you want? Like, just leave me alone. I'm at work, you know where I am, what's the problem?
But this is an interesting bit because some of that language could also be jumped across into the secure person, because it's like, I'm at work, like some, even though it is part of the dismissive vocabulary, could some of it also be a bit like secure in terms of like, this is my boundary?
Exactly, is to establish a boundary, which is careful communication with your partner that, hey, if you message me at work, I may or may not be able to get back to you, but if I can, I will. Just know that it's not going to be all day. That is a careful, considered communication to your partner, and your partner is okay with that, right? Like, okay, well, just some of the time I want to know that you're thinking about me, right? Or that's a usual reaction between partners. Right.
So could a secure and an anxious person get together, and then could an anxious person eventually become secure?
Yes.
If the other person, because they're constantly giving them, like, this is structured boundary, like a set of language. It's not game playing. It's very much like, this is a situation. That's what it is. Yeah.
And recovering from that anxious attack. All of these sound like a lot, right?
Yes. When they definitely do sound like a lot.
Yeah. The secure box is the ultimate goal.
Yes.
So if you're anxious avoidant, if you're anxious preoccupied, and you're kind of you're a bit intense, and you're a bit needy, you do need to address that, right? Like messaging people, like sending 17 messages in the space of 5 minutes. If that was in person to person, that's harassment, right? Like you need to look at it. Yeah, like you're not giving someone the chance to respond. And like, especially with Apple Watches and things like that, getting buzzed that many times creates a hypervigilant response, right? Creates a stress response, which then...
I was going to like, because it would also go the other way. If you're in like a very like secure frame of mind, if someone's giving you messages that many times, you'd be like, oh, it could be an emergency. Yeah. It starts getting into that bit of like, oh god, it's nothing, and that's
right. And a secure person and an anxious person, if an anxious person is, I don't want to say bad enough, but like extreme enough, they can push that secure person back into the dismissive box, which is, I'm not dealing with this.
Right. Okay. So being around somebody else who's not moving or making a change, wanting to make any changes, can push you into a different position.
It can,
because it's toxic.
Yeah, because you're almost dragged, right? You're dragged into these other positions because there's you over here in your secure box, minding your own business. Suddenly comes this person that sometimes it's like a savior complex, like I can help this person, I can help this person. They've just had making excuses for their issues, like, oh, they came out of an abusive relationship and they're just trying to figure it out. Eventually that starts to wear on your secureness, right? Which is, oh, I better let them know where I am because they might worry. You might not have had that consideration before because of your secureness. That, well, we've talked about that. I'm on my way to work. Hey, how I made it to work? How I'll see you later.
It's all
but
good.
Constant hounding can push you down into that dismissive box and be like, look, I'm not dealing with it. I'm at work. So the boundaries become more severe and more enclosing because I don't have the emotional capacity to deal with this right now. And the resentfulness starts to get created of, I'm at work and you're encroaching upon my space. So I'm done. Right? That's dismissive avoidant is, you're blowing my phone. I'll just turn it off.
Yes. Yeah.
Then on the other side, can you imagine being anxious, preoccupied, and then someone turning their phone off? Like, you would freak out.
That would send them into nuclear mode. I'd imagine it'd be like completely.
And that creates a fracture between the relationship because they've gone to the polar south. Yeah. But so that is an extreme. Again, we're talking in extremes. There's also a sliding continuum with every one of them. Yeah. But healing, you can heal from all of these.
I was going to just circle back a bit to the avoidant fearful one, because we seem to talk about the other one, three the most, but for the fearful one, what would they ever get with any a dismissive or an anxious person, a fearful person? Could they potentially end up with anybody?
Yeah, no, they are, and a lot of the time they're the most toxic, I think, of all of them because they have no attachment to their self.
Right. Okay.
What I mean by that is we all have this inner voice of what we will and won't tolerate, right? What our style is, what we're allowed, what we do during the day, what things we like, what things we don't like. Avoidant fearful don't have that self-concept of who they are. So whoever they're with becomes their new thing.
So it will become about them. It will become they create their personality based on create their personality. Is that right? So they create the whole world about that person, whoever that person ends up being. Okay.
Yep. So it might be this person, your partner's into anime. Suddenly, this person is now lives and dies by anime. They may be about yachting and belong to a. Suddenly, they're wearing, boat shoes and a cravat. They have. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, but that's different to. Some people might get oh, my partner's got this, and it's different. But you go along and trying to find appreciation and finding there's a different level to this because that is normal. You might do it for one night, but this person absorbs that, and that's becomes part of them permanently, kind of for the duration of the card. Yeah.
Because my partner may leave me if I don't like this. Right. Whereas normal exchange might be appreciation and love for the person that loves to do that, and they may go along to a Comic-Con or whatever with them in support of them, but they still have their own hobbies and interests that are supported on both sides, right? Which is a normal functioning relationship. But the fearfuls, evolve to whatever their partner needs them to be at the risk of losing, they have no self. They're not losing anything. It's just they don't know how to exist without them. So that when the person leaves can be completely destructive and almost unhinge the person.
What would the fearfuls be like in terms of if they were? Because like the dismissive wouldn't answer their phone. The anxious ones are completely like, I want to be in contact. I want to know where you are. The fearfuls, are they sort of like, how are they communicating?
It's hit and miss.
Do they have a very scattergun approach to having?
Scattered, disorganized. Yeah, one day it might be 150 messages all day. They're with you. They're present. The next day you can't find them.
Just off the map, gone.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and can you imagine trying, like, as functioning adults, trying to imagine being in some relationship with someone like that now would be like, I'm not even going to touch that. Like, nope, I can't. Yeah. You can't live in chaos and dysfunction.
No.
Right? That is not how you function. And a lot of people, having dealt with or been in a relationship with someone like this, are going to have residual issues they need to clear before they're with somebody else again. Because it generates these weird relationship patterns that you may not have ever experienced. Young people are particularly susceptible, I think, to that, especially within the LGBT community as well. I think a lot of this not knowing who you are, feeling like who you are is unacceptable, all of these outliers and these outward messages that affect how you present yourself as a gay person to then deal with someone else who doesn't know who they are. You know what I mean? Like, it can create quite toxic, quite codependent relationships. So learning your attachment style, and you can do it, you can do it online, or you can go and see a good therapist, right?
Of course,
figure it out.
Many available, but we can put the link to the test. I think, because we have attachment style tests, we can link it.
You can do it online, and it'll give you a brief example of kind of who you are. Again, all of this is kind of novel. If you really wanted to know, go and see someone, right, and get it sorted out. But after all of that, let's talk about how you get out of those boxes, right? If you're listening to this thinking, holy shit, I'm an anxious person and I'm coming for my partner, let's talk about healing.
So, like, following on from that bit, so this is from Mainly Entrepreneur, and I thought we looked at this and we thought this was quite an apt thing. So, normalizing saying no without needing to over-explain yourself.
Yes,
if someone is offended by your boundaries, that's their problem. The best weight you'll ever lose is the weight of other people's opinions of you. Now, there's quite a bit in there.
Yes.
That not needing to over-explain yourself. But this is interesting because it fits into that, a passive-aggressive, assertive language. And, like, in terms of when you have to over-explain it. To me, it's like, if you're in a back and forth with somebody, the more you explain, the more you're giving them ammunition to unpick, undo, take it from out underneath you. It's like, if you, like, no is a full sentence. I think you've definitely said that to me before. No is a full sentence.
No is a response. Like, and it's interesting, I think, again, culturally speaking, British people, we overcompensate for the feelings of others. It's built into our experience. There's a lot of this standing in line without complaining until you get home, and then you complain about it when you get home.
Yes.
But you don't dare say nothing. You don't dare say anything while you're in line. Whereas over here, they'll ask for the manager in a split second in America, right? Like, I want to talk to your manager. I don't like that you're telling me no. Go and get somebody else. And this very like entitled, self-centered. It's all about me. So saying no to Americans is almost like an instant dismissive response, which is, well, I don't agree with you. You're wrong.
But it's weird because I thought it's like, could you even call that immediacy? Like in the whereas Brits are like, we need to go and process that, and we'll go home and we'll be mad about it, and then we'll kick off. To the people who can't change it, to the people who are like the ever suffering spouse has to hear another round of whose fault it was or whatever was going on at work.
Yeah, no, like, and I think even no response is a response, right? You don't even have to say the word no. If you didn't respond to whatever it was, whether it was a rude comment, whether it's a dick pic, any of that BS that comes with being online.
Yes.
You don't have to respond. There's this weird, like, Like, well, I've sent you a message, so therefore I'm eliciting a response from you. Right, but you don't get to say what that response is. Like,
or when that response
yeah.
happens. Because that was another friend who said that she'd passed it on to her daughter who was having a back and forth with one of her friends, and she was like, she just said to her when the message came through, you don't actually have to respond to it now.
Now,
And
yes.
that is the biggest thing, because I think we're almost culturally taught that if there's a message pending or the message written, to respond to it quickly. Part of it in a work hat is like, because you don't know what other work's going to come on top of that, to try and clear what you've got. But like that bleeds over into our normal everyday lives. Like, oh, you've got a message waiting, that's something for you to action. You need to respond to that.
Well, it generates anxiety. You know, you get these little, especially on an iPhone, you've got these little wands above your apps that say, you know, in red. Why is it red? Why is it red? You know what I mean? Like, red is such a danger color, like an immediate color. You need to answer this now. I think it's all very subliminal, like you need to answer it. But I think it generates anxiety of, well, I better answer it because I don't want them to get annoyed or feel like I'm wasting their time. What a weird, like, it's being orchestrated.
This whole...
But then the irony is, half the time, if you just thought about your response before typing it out, it would be actually a response and not a reaction.
Isn't it interesting that when you've got something that's live, because like if you're doing a live show, like performance, like whatever, even on like WhatsApp, you've got the tick of it's been sent and the double tick to say that they've read it. There's nothing worse than being left unread. That person's read it, or the dots of their typing, and then all of a sudden no message appears. Because again, the brain doesn't like blank, so the brain then starts to fill it in and creating more anxiety about, oh, maybe they think of this, so maybe I should send another message. And before you know where you are, you've sent 6 messages, over-explaining yourself, rather than just let the situation lie.
Yeah, and I think that's where I think consent and stuff like that as well. Like many a thing I've read online where someone has caught in backlash because somebody has said something and they didn't respond. That's a red flag. Like, or saying you don't have to say no to still have effective boundaries. You shouldn't have to tell somebody no, specifically no, I don't want to do this. It should already have been established within those relationship boundaries.
Right, yeah.
But you do not have to explain yourself.
The default position is not approved, and you have to turn around and say no. I think that's the different thing. And I remember, especially when I was like on the apps many moons ago, didn't ask for that picture or what was that for. But again, I think there's a crossover with what like what will happen on Tinder, or like from what I've seen from female friends. It's like, again, what you're describing on like, oh, it's unsolicited, and you're like, whoa, what's that for? No thanks. And all of a sudden, it's this negative backlash of like, oh, but like, hang on, hang on.
Yeah.
I never asked for this. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for this. And it's...
And that's that dismissive, avoidant, anxious, preoccupied. Like, I did not ask for this. Well, that's your problem. Get off of these apps if you don't like it. Yeah. That's an immediate block and a delete. Bye, sir.
Correct. Yeah. I know, it's just like the most... But according to...
If somebody came up to you in public and flashed you, that is a criminal offence.
Right, exactly.
So why do you feel it's necessary to offend my eyes by sending me something like that online and then blaming me when I don't act like suddenly you're my Prince Charming?
Oh, you don't see that in the Disney movies. You don't see that.
You don't see Prince Eric doing that in Mermaid, do you know what I mean?
No.
But yeah, I mean, it is fascinating how this sense of immediacy, I'm going to phrase that, the sense of immediacy does not take away the ability to say no thank you, and that's not for me. Yeah. Like, you are not responsible for someone else's feelings. How somebody else chooses to take that information is on them. Right? I mean, if you're actively being cruel or disrespectful, that is on you. Right? There is a way to communicate where you're not actively being hateful. Yeah, if you want to be hateful and you're fine with the consequences, have at it. You know what I mean?
Because you can be honest without being, as you said, like a douche about it. You know, you can't.
Yeah, because then you're just generating more douchebaggery from the other side. Right? Like, if you want to set fires, be my guest. But just know people get burnt. They're like, but it's there's a way that you can respectfully say no and walk away and not feel guilty about it. And like, we hold on to that. Maybe I hurt their feelings at one time. Like, think about.
Because I suppose it's more like that immediate. They're more in that immediate presence, and that's it, done. And I think with us, it does linger. I think one of the nicest breakup things that I've seen was somebody saying, "Oh, my feelings haven't developed the way I would have wanted to," which doesn't take away from the other person. It was a really nice way of like, you don't have to just diminish the other person in order to walk away from something.
Exactly.
And still be, How would we heal from this? How would we heal from all this craziness?
So, a lot of it is understanding that and owning what you are responsible for, which is your own actions. Sending someone 150 messages in 20 minutes is excessive, and you need to own that.
Yeah.
Right? That is not acceptable.
Yeah.
And in a way that's about something like where they were. Do you know what I mean? If someone, obviously there's a sliding scale. If someone died, then yeah, that's important.
Right.
But stop people pleasing. Like, you have to have this sense of self where you know who you are and what you will and will not tolerate. And it's important to recognize that those are boundaries, and you do not have to explain them. If you don't like something, that's the end of that's it. Right? If you feel like the person is curious and asking why to better understand you, that's different. But if you're being, if you're being held like, well, why not? Why not?
Right.
No, you gave them an answer, and their response is actually informing that answer a little bit more, that you're maybe not with the right one for me.
Because it's right, because their response is not about you. It's not. They don't want to understand why it is for you. They just want to smash down that barrier and get what they wanted. Yeah. Because it's,
And generating that sense of self is learning to be happy from within. Happiness is such a weird construct, and it's not this. Happiness is sold to us like it's this maniacal sort of big smile, everything's great. Happiness should actually be called content. I think being able to be content with yourself and others, and that didn't work out, and that's okay. Not internalizing that as there's something wrong with me. It didn't work out. That's all right. Pick yourself up, move on.
It's true, because even about life, it shouldn't be about like, oh, well, I've achieved this now, tick done. It's like, no, you create the environment for you to survive through life. It's not about the, one day to the other. It's about how you recover. It's how you like process things, how you enjoy things, as you say, how you're contented, how you fill up your cup of energy, or where do you get your inspiration from, what motivates you, are you in tune with the people that matter the most to you, like finding out, like, are they the priority that you want them to be, or is other people shoved their way ahead of it and you don't want them to be there? It's like, is that dismissive climbing the way up and making you feel more anxious? Like, is that, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's exactly it. Like, you stuffing your needs and wants down to make someone else happy is toxic, right? You need to know what your wants and needs are, and being able to get them met in healthy ways. But also being able to accept no, and that it's not about you, right? Whatever you've got going on, it's just that they said no. They said no to the event or to the something. Hey, do you want to go to the movies tonight? No, not really. Well, obviously he doesn't want to hang out with me. No, maybe they're just tired. Maybe they got something else going on. Maybe they're looking, you don't.
Yeah. You offer it, but.
Yeah. Being able to speak up for what you want in effective and healthy ways by having it not come out in an argument. Well, you never do this for me. You never even mentioned it, right? Like, and even knowing those love languages, that's massive in attachment as well. If what's important to you is a calm, tidy house, because that's where your space and your safety is, then having somebody come in and constantly give you gifts and bring more stuff into the house is actually causing you more stress. What you really want them to do is wash the dishes, and vacuum every now and then. You have to communicate effectively and positively, and not have it come out in a knockdown, drag out fight where they didn't even know it was an issue. You have to voice it, and voice it with compassion and conviction, I think.
Right, because the last I checked, there was no qualifications in mind reading. You know, like your partner or your friend or your whatever, they won't be a mind reader. And I think a genuine person wants to understand you because they don't want to upset you. And I would say that's a normal response to not want to upset somebody.
Like I heard it said before, like we essentially in relationships we explain our maps to people and we give them knives to know where to hurt us. Like if you are actively choosing to hurt somebody because they hurt your feelings, you probably need to take a step away, figure out what it is that you need or want in this relationship, and potentially go somewhere else. Because you don't bring up other people's trauma to hit them with in an argument because you got your feelings hurt.
Right.
That is not an adult response. That is a child response, which is you hurt my feelings, so I'm going to hurt you. That's not how you heal, right? You just created more damage and you fractured whatever was that person trusted you with that.
Yeah.
And you used it against them. And that, again, is that you weren't communicating your needs and wants effectively. So you were in resentful, hurt child mode where arms folded, resistant to, I don't want to listen to you.
But this is also quite useful to know, because if you know that if you're getting into an argument and you're getting to that stage, this is what's going on. It's not like you're not, you know what I mean? It's important to know it's important to know the bits going wrong, because I think a lot of people can find themselves there and be like, well, why am I like this for? This is not me. Why am I in this situation? Well, it could be who you're arguing against. It could be one of the bits.
And I think the important part is not staying with somebody just because you need to feel something. Right. Like not staying with someone just to feel the smallest part of love. You deserve much more than that. Like, and not staying with someone you think you can save them. Other people are not yours to save. Right. Like, you cannot be in a relationship and think, well, he just needs to be loved a bit more, and he just, girl.
No. Oh my God.
Give him a number of a good therapist and get your ass out. Like.
That's what you can do to help. Give them the signpost or figure, because it's not your responsibility.
No.
It's different if someone's like, I'm going through all this and this is how I'm handling it. This is always got a baggage check. And who's like, like some people don't. Some people like drag it along the thing with you, and it's, as you said, oh, they just need a bit more love. No. They need to figure their stuff out.
Yeah, and the response you just gave was a secure attached response, which is, I can't give you what it is that you need, so you need to let me help you find somewhere else, and I'm out, right? Like, because once you find your sense of self and your self-safety, you will not give it up for anybody else. And that's the important part, is each one of these boxes, secure is the ultimate goal, and the other two, you can piece by piece get back into that secure self. But you have to be able to address it. You have to be able to recognize that some of the things that you are doing are toxic and damaging. And also, you deserve more than what you're allowing yourself to have. Like, it's okay to say, no, I don't like that. And your partner go, okay, babe, no problem. Like, we'll try something else.
Yeah.
Not, well, everyone else I've been with likes it.
Like, it's
red flag.
No, that's like the worst. It's like the worst. It's almost like, well, what's wrong with you? Because everybody else has liked it. But not everybody else has stayed. Just notice, like, you're not.
Yeah, that is a whole bag of nope.
That's a whole bag of nope. Nope, indeed.
So the reason we're talking about attachment styles is because they all intertwined with consent, boundaries, needs, wants, communication. Like, knowing what you are is one thing.
Yes.
Being able to effectively be a functioning adult in a relationship, a mutually fulfilling relationship, you have to know who you are and what you're doing.
That's right. You do. You 100% do. Because then, you're right, you will get what you want, and you'll get your needs met. You get that content feeling, that satisfied feeling. It'll all come back together. Yeah.
Yep.
Life is complicated.
It is. But I think there's knowledge in power and knowledge, right? Being able to understand, you know what, I do keep picking these same people, and I have no idea why. Like, I keep looking for the same person. Look at what's going on inside first. There's something missing that you're trying to seek. You cannot find in others what you need to complete you. You have to be you first.
Rather than a chameleon changing to whatever situation you're in, and it's okay if you it's like it's just saying, like, I don't want to like pigeon as good and secure or start off as good and secure. Do you know what I mean? Like, people can come from a place of like, I was a bit like this. It's okay to be a bit like this if you're willing to change. I don't think it should be a case of like, you can have done bad things or said the wrong thing in the past, but that's, I mean, I definitely have. And I just think, but the whole purpose of moving into a secure place is that you stop doing it, or you stop repeating that pattern, and you put out a different connection with the world. It doesn't mean like...
I think that the strongest part of secure attachment is that secureness with self. Is, you know, I've been dismissive avoidant previously, realized that, and flipped between the two, and then finally stepping into secure, realizing that I don't have to do anything. You know, like, I am okay with me. I'm continuing to grow and evolve, and once you find that right person, how much easier it is to be with somebody that you don't have to explain yourself of why you're upset. Somebody already understands. You're able to communicate things. You were frustrated with your partner, and you're able to say, hey, well, you know, what was that about? Can we talk about it? And then not be a 12-hour argument about it and someone sleeps on the couch. More of a, look, I didn't like that. We need to figure out what we're going to do next. Actually figuring out what you're going to do next and moving forward.
And that's the power in it. That's the power of, like, understanding yourself. That's why it's important to understand yourself. Like, this is the reason why I don't like it. And back to that thing that we mentioned before, like, if it's important to you, it's important to me. Like, you know, it's that something's upset you, so it's important to me to find out why, and can we correct it? Can we make sure that I don't upset you again? Because a normal, functioning, healthy relationship, you wouldn't want to be hurting each other all the time.
Of course not. Right. But it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And it's okay to be any of them. I don't want anyone listening to this thinking, oh my God, I'm dismissive avoidant. We're by no means telling you who you are. It's merely offering an alternative perspective on this might help you if you're feeling unfulfilled in a relationship, or like you're developing traits that you don't know why you're doing it, or you're feeling something like that. So if you do feel like that, then reach out.
Yeah, of course, and it's because it is a tool, as you say, it's a tool to help you investigate, and you know, you definitely need to do that with some sort of professional. Don't just take one test or whatever. It's a bit of information for you to kind of maybe think about, but then I would follow it up, as you're saying before, with a professional, with somebody else. Talk with somebody who knows what they're talking about, rather than just your mate down the pub.
It's almost as bad to do as doing WebMD. No.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Okay, well, it sounds like I think we've covered it. I definitely think we've covered it.
So. This was fun. Yeah.
So
let us know what you think in the comments.